tonight. And I am Carol Whitmore. I'm the Manatee County At-Large Commissioner. And I want to welcome you to this hurricane preparedness meeting. As an Anna Maria Island resident for 50 years now, I understand how important this is. And as a former mayor of a city on the island, I understand how very important this is. So I appreciate you all taking the time out of your night and joining us. Over the past several months, the coronavirus quarantine and restrictions on group gatherings have made it impossible for emergency managers' offices to make springtime visits to the neighborhoods and community meetings to pass along the most important messages of hurricane season. So we decided to reach out in a different way. I thank everyone for your patience and their interest in getting this year's update. Joining me today is Steve Lichauer. He's our Emergency Management Chief, and Jake Sauer is our Public Safety Director. Yes, Jake is the one that's made all these decisions lately. Together, they have more than 50 years of combined public services in our community. Steve is going to tell you how you can find out if your home is safe enough to shelter in place, or if you're in an evacuation zone. He's going to give you suggestions on where to find safer ground. If an evacuation notice goes out, we will open some public shelters with social distancing restrictions and other safeguards. However, the coronavirus is extremely dangerous and is extremely contagious, and there is no perfect preventive measure we can take to completely guarantee the virus does not enter a shelter or that it spreads to those who are there, even if they're wearing a face mask and washing hands regularly. With that, I'll turn this over to Jake Sauer and Chief Lichauer for a 20-minute presentation, and he'll take some time to answer your questions.
Good evening, everybody. I am Jake Sauer, the Director of Public Safety. Steve is going to walk through some slides explaining what COVID-19 looks like in a shelter and our EM planning that we have been occurring for this year. There's a lot of different updates and things that are occurring, so Steve will go through that, and at the end we'll have time to take anybody's questions or comments towards the end. So go ahead, Steve.
All right, thank you. Let me pull up a screen. All right, good evening, everyone, and hope you can see my screen. What I want everybody to know too, and you can tell your friends, that this session, like the others, are recorded. So if you go on to mymanatee.org/town hall, you can get a recording of this session or any of the others. If you missed something, you saw a slide that you wanted to get, will be out there in the future. We will take answers at the end, and when we get to that point, I will explain to you the process of questions and answers. The overview tonight, we're going to touch on these 6 items. Knowing your home, and when we discuss knowing your home, it's what year your home was built, and under the building codes of Manatee County, what strength winds that roof and home was built to sustain. Know your level is knowing what evacuation level you live in. So you know when we call evacuation level A, B, C, D, etc., how to find it, and then some tips on how to, what you should do when you evacuate. Some tips on preparing your home, showing you where you can find out sandbag locations and shelter locations, and then the difference between 911 and 311. We'll go over that in a few minutes. So as everybody knows, now we're a couple weeks into hurricane season. You will know that when I start talking that I was educated here locally up here. So I use the word just a tad, means just a little bit busier in 2020 than it is in 2019. So in 2020, the predictions, and that's what it is, a prediction, of 16 named storms, 8 turned into hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane. What we need to remember is we had 2 storms already before the season started, and now we're even into the first week we had 3 named storms. So what we ask you to do is do not key in on number of storms, number of hurricanes, etc., because it only takes that one. Ask the Panhandle 2 years ago if it mattered whether they had 10 or 12 or whatever, it only takes one. So we want you to be prepared, and we'll tell you about some tips on preparing as we go forward. People ask when hurricane season is. The season itself is June 1 through the month of November. This is a graph over the last 100 years. And as you can see, starting in May all the way through December, there have been hurricanes and storms. The peak of this season is September the 10th. If you think back a couple years ago, when did Hurricane Irma come through? September the 10th. But this is a chart, so the busier part of the season starts later August to later October, but a storm can come literally any time of the year. And as the commissioner relayed, she's lived on the island for many years. We've had more impact by what we call no-name storms too than we have hurricanes to the area. So it's just don't key in on, oh, it's hurricane season. That's the only time I need to prepare. We want you to be prepared at all times. Something else we need you to be aware of is we see on the news all the time those storms out in the Atlantic coming in off the coast and taking 7-10 days to get here. That you can watch for 7 to 10 days. But statistics show over the last 100 years, the most powerful storms, categories 4s and 5s, that hit our Gulf Coast over here have went from what I call a Sunday afternoon rainstorm to a category 4 or 5 in 3 days, in less than 72 hours. We can watch those coming in off the Atlantic for 7 to 10 days, but the ones we really need to worry about is those that come over here in this area of the Caribbean and come up in the Gulf, because they go from nothing to major storm in 3 days. And I'm going to tell you, 3 days is not enough time to prepare, make your decision, and that's why we need you to be prepared now. Every year we come out, not us, we have them printed, a hurricane guide. We call it the All Hazards Guide because it does approach all types of hazards. We have, if you belong to a homeowners association, condo association, a business, we have them by the box. At the end, you can jot down my phone number and email. We can arrange for you to pick up boxes of them for your employees, family, friends, condo associations, etc. If you have one from last year, it's 99.9% the same thing, a little different graphics, some updated information, but if you couldn't get another one, you're pretty well off. But the other thing is on this particular link on our website, everything starts with mymanatee.org. So even if you went to mymanatee.org and said hurricane guide, it would take you there. You can get this beautiful, intuitive hurricane guide right online too without having to get one. We also have them at the county libraries, and there's a few other places, city halls have them, but that's a great resource to have. It has important phone numbers, maps, etc. in them. We want you to have a kit. Many, many years we would say, oh, 3 to 5 days, that'll get you by. Well, now we're saying 7 to 10 days. We want you to have it for 7 to 10 days. The least is a week. What might else you need this year in your kit? Most important, masks, gloves, and sanitizers. We will talk a little bit about masks, gloves, and sanitizers in a few minutes when we talk about shelters. But this is if you went to a family of friends, went out of state, wherever you go, you still need to pack that 7 to 10 days, masks, gloves, and sanitizers. I joke that this kit is no different than if you lived up north for a blizzard. The only thing our kit doesn't have that you have up north is your fur coat and a snow shovel, but everything else is the same. Change of clothes, phone chargers, prescriptions, also masks and gloves. A thing I'll say about your prescription bottles, and we've seen this at Hurricane Michael and the Panhandle. If you do evacuate, take your prescription bottle with you, because what a lot of those folks saw when their homes was destroyed, their doctor's office was destroyed, and their pharmacy was destroyed, it was very difficult to get a prescription filled. So just a little reminder, but the typical things. The other thing we would like to tell people about is as you're packing your kit and you're putting canned goods in it, beanie weenies, beef stew, etc. Think about towards the end of November, 1st of December, you know what occurs? Food drives for different churches, different nonprofits. So come the end of hurricane season, what a better way to, I call it re-gifting, because if you haven't eaten that can of pork and beans or beef stew, why not rotate it out and give it to someone in need? And then you can restock it later on. So just a little thing to think about. The other thing we want you to let you know about is to inform families first. This program's been out for probably 15 plus years. It's an excellent program. Actually, it was initiated by a local person whose daughter was killed in a motor vehicle accident. This information, the links there, the information's there, is you contact by that link or through the Driver's License Bureau and list who your emergency contact is. It's private information. The only time it can be used in a time of emergency. So whether it's in a storm or a motor vehicle accident, a great way that if you even passed out on the sidewalk and there was nobody there with you, if you're registered, law enforcement, EMS, fire can find out who your next of kin is and who to notify. So a great website out there to notify your loved ones if something would happen. The thing we want you to remember too is you may not have children at home, but you may have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces and nephews visiting you, because we live in paradise. We live on the Gulf Coast of Florida. What else happens during the summer? Those grandchildren, nieces, nephews, family, friends come visit us. So what would happen in the middle of the summer and you had a house full of young ones with you and power went out or we had a storm? I can tell you right now, my granddaughter, if she lost electricity, I'm not sure if she would know how to cope. So have those things that a lot of us grew up on, board games, card games, coloring books, and so forth. So even though if you don't have young children, I'm sure you have some to visit. So just have a few of those things set aside, maybe some children's snacks. That's always comes in handy. The other one we have to worry about is I call them our fur babies. Most people, their animals is closer to them. They are their companions. So we have to prepare for those fur babies. We have to have water for them. We have to have their medications. We have to have their shots, records of their shots. And the other thing is, if you evacuate, and whether you go to a friend's house or shelter or even travel out of state, you should have a crate. And Chief Brown from Animal Services reminds us that crate has to be big enough for that animal to stand up in and turn around in. Otherwise, you're hindering that animal. So make sure you have the right size crate for those fur babies that we all love. Moving on, here's what we were talking about earlier about knowing your home. According to Manatee County Building Code, if your home was built 2012 on, it was built to 150 mile an hour wind. That is a high category 4 storm. It was built 2002 to 2012, 130 mile an hour wind, which is a regular category 4 storm, which is pretty impactful. And then 2002 back can go anywhere from 90 to 110. So those items are very important. In just a few minutes, I'll show you how you can tell the year your home was built. The other thing you got to remember is you could have bought a older home. You could have had a new roof put on it, and that new roof could be 150 mile or more wind rated, or you could have put in newer windows, etc. So this is just a guide that if you had no idea when your home was built, what was the minimum standard. Obviously, people upgrade their homes all the time. We evacuate for 2 reasons. One is storm surge. Storm surge is that wall of water coming in off the Gulf of Mexico and then down the rivers. Flooding is rainfall. So storm surge, we will get reports from National Weather, the Hurricane Center, that says your area is subjected to X amount of storm surge. And that's where, when we talk about evacuation levels, that's what we're talking about. We'll go over that in a few minutes. The other one is manufactured and mobile homes. It doesn't matter where that manufactured mobile home is. It's an automatic category A, and we want you to evacuate because the wind, give you an example, during Hurricane Michael that hit the Panhandle now almost 2 years ago, if it would have come in off of our beaches at the strength that came in up there, they had 100-mile-an-hour winds as far inland as Arcadia. So that's kind of scary to know that it's just not a coastal worry, but those winds can carry on. We want you to prepare your home inside and out. If your home was built, again, in Manatee County after 2007, you would have been given shutters with your home. They may be in your attic, tucked away in your garage, but they were built and furnished with 2007 onward. A lot of you have remodeled your home with hurricane-proof windows, shutters, etc. Those are great things. Garage doors now, the one I have will sustain winds of 150-mile-an-hour wind, which are great things. But the thing I want to remind you about, and people don't realize, if you can see my cursor, lawn furniture, bicycles, planters, barbecue grills. If you don't bring those in, you may have those in your house. The way they get in is through your plate glass window. The wind will pick that up. If you see your neighbor's lawn chair sitting out, they're gone. Pick that lawn chair up, put it in your garage until the storm's over and put it back, because if you don't, you may have it in your living room. So think about those things that you need to pick up, strap down. Trees, if a tree falls, how far is it gonna fall? Look at, oh, it's a 30-foot tree and it's only 10 feet from my house. So you may wanna have that pruned or trimmed back or something. So those are just little things to think about when you are preparing your home. First responders, EMS and fire, if sustained winds, and I say sustained, is 45 miles an hour or greater, they quit responding for safety reasons. That wind will just take those ambulances and blow them all over the road. Law enforcement, because they're in a little low profile vehicles, 55-mile-an-hour winds or more. So, and that's sustained in an area. Just because the winds, say, are high in West Bradenton, they could still be going and say in Mayaca City or something. So those are sustained winds in a given area. All right, this is probably one of the most important slides that I want to talk about tonight. The first one is know your level, and the second one is in sandbags and shelter location. So give me a second to switch screens. And give me a second. Oh, oops. Okay, resident tool. You'll see this off the website. And again, if you just went to mymanatee.org, and put in resident tool. So we're going to enter the address of the Manatee County Admin Building. And this particular website is full of some great information. All right, if you could follow my cursor, starting over here to the left is information about trash pickup, etc. But the important area is right here, public safety. If you follow my cursor, if you drop down to the very first thing, it says evacuation level. That's in a C and D evacuation area. The reason that is, I'm going to scroll up a little bit. is that it's, see, one part is in one area, one part in the other. If that was my resident, I would err to the caution of evacuation level C. It also tells you the nearest shelter, a pet-friendly shelter, what law enforcement agency. So this is for that location. If you entered that location or your home address, you would get that for you. Over here is political information, who's the county commissioner, polling places, etc. But the other part of this website that's very important is property information. Property information, if you look down here, my cursor where I'm circling, year built, 1989. So 1989 would be anywhere from 90 to 110 mile an hour wind. So great website. Like I said, this is recorded, but if you did mymanatee.org and put in resident tool, you would see that. Now let me switch screens here again. Now this other website is, let me take my, take my cursor. See the little red schoolhouses that I'm circling, the little red schoolhouses? If it's red, that's a closed shelter. As we open them, that turns green. All the different, if you're following my cursor, I'll try not to go, that's the evacuation levels that you can look at. So red is level A, green is B, etc. Or I'm sorry, orange is B, yellow is C, and so forth. But the little schoolhouses are all the shelters. We have 24 shelters. We do not open them all at the same time. We open them in phases. And the reason for that is it depends on which direction the storm's coming and the intensity of the school's coming. So just because you live near a shelter doesn't mean it's going to be the first one that's open. Now, the other thing we want you to look at is the sandbags. See where I'm going with my cursor? Black sandbags, there's various locations around. If it is black, that sandbag location is closed. If it turns into an orangish color, that sandbag location is open. So again, if you went to mymanatee.org, you would see, you could enter in sandbag location, it would take you there also. Give me a second to change screens. All right. When and if you have to evacuate, we want you to evacuate tens of miles and not hundreds of miles. Tens of miles and not hundreds of miles. If you were here during Hurricane Irma a couple years ago, you saw how busy the roads were, how the traffic was backed up. So what we want to try to get you to do is go to a family and friends home outside the evacuation, stay at a hotel in a safe area, or if you are going to go out of town where there's no weather threat. The biggest thing is leave as early as possible. So if you are going to leave town, leave as early as possible, because I've heard stories over Hurricane Irma that people took 2, 3, and 4 times the length of time to get to where they were going, almost ran out of gas and everything. We want you, if you have to evacuate, to find a friend, a family member to go to a hotel and use the shelter as a last resort. And we'll go over that in just a few minutes. All right, shelters. This year, we're referring them to a refuge of last resort, a refuge of last resort. If you look into this picture, you can obviously see, this is from past years, no one is social distancing. So to do the best we can under the guidelines of the state of Florida, American Red Cross, and et cetera, our capacity this year is going to be about 35% of what we used to have, because that's allowing 6 feet social distancing. There's still no guarantee that someone won't be in there with COVID. This is why we want you to go elsewhere if you can. If you have to go to a shelter, then do so. We used to say a shelter was a lifeboat and not a cruise ship. Now I'm saying it's more like a canoe, but it's a safe location. It's a safe location and you'll be fed. If you do not have to go, please leave that limited space for those that have to go to a shelter. So again, we keep asking you to find friend, family, and also knowing your level, because if you live in a DE or no evacuation level, your home's well built, you do not need to evacuate. So please take that in consideration. Because also, if you follow my cursor, you need to bring all of your personal supplies. We don't furnish cots or mattresses, pillows or sheets or anything like that. I go back to a shelter is a safe location, period. If you have to, go to a shelter, but we encourage you going to somewhere else. Medical needs shelters, there's three main reasons to go to medical needs shelters. One is oxygen dependent person, electrical dependent, and Alzheimer and dementia. We ask you to sign up now at that website, mymanatee.org/needs, and sign up now. The best example I can give is you were having a party at your house a year ago, because we don't want 25 people in your house now. But if you were holding a party for 25 people and 100 people would show up, would you have enough room? Would you have enough food? Would you have enough help? And that's the key, that if you do need help for one of these three reasons, we want you to sign up now so we can have enough supplies, enough beds, and enough medical personnel on site to help you out, because at the last minute, if we may be not having enough of those things. Code Red, currently we still use Code Red. This is the website, mymanatee.org/emergency. It's a great way to sign up and get a emergency message, not an everyday message, emergency message from us direct. I joke about this because if you've lived in Florida more than last week, you know it can rain on one side of Manatee Avenue and not the other. So if you're watching one of the Tampa stations, all good stations, and they say, it's raining cats and dogs up here in Tampa, and you look out your living room window and it's sunny, is that a good guide? So think about signing up for mymanatee.org emergency. The other thing we just started this year is text Manatee Ready at 888-777, a great tool for very short text messages. Director Sauer and a public information officer has been sending out a lot of different short messages about COVID. So text 888-777 with say Manatee Ready and sign up for that great notification for short text messages about various emergencies. CERT teams, community emergency response teams. Currently we have 7. We're growing. I just got notified of another one growing up. But these are neighborhood, community-based, family and friends and neighbors come together, train. We offer classes twice a year. Like everything else have been postponed a little bit because of the virus, but we give you some training to be really our eyes and ears out there to help us in the time of need, to keep us notified of what's going on in your particular neighborhood. If you have interest in CERT teams, please reach out to me. As I said, my information will be at the end of this presentation. I know a lot of things, we're making it very short, so it's not long drawn out, but at any time y'all can reach out to our office and we'll give you more information on any of the topics we discussed. Like everybody else this time of the, with all the enhancements, Manatee County Government's on Facebook, Emergency Management's on Facebook, Twitter, all those different social medias. Get on it. A lot of great information coming out. About 6-9 months ago, Director Sowers was very instrumental of starting 311. 311 is an easy number to remember for non-emergency numbers. In the past, if you wanted to get a hold of somebody at utilities, you dialed one number. At Public Works, you did another number. If you want to know when the libraries are open, another number. Simplified 311 for any questions, non-emergency in nature. Because on 911, that's to report emergencies, fires, crime in progress, accidents, etc. Don't call 911 for directions. Where's sandbags at? What shelter's open? Call 311. And when a storm comes, we ramp up. It sounds like a commercial, but we have extra operators awaiting to take your call at 311 for those non-emergency numbers. So I know I went pretty fast, but a lot of information. I'll put my screen up here to end things out so you can jot down my email or my phone number. As I said, this will be recorded at the same site. You got the link to come on to this town hall meeting. I'll leave this up for a second, and then we'll entertain questions. Let me go ahead and switch screens, and as I'm doing it, I'll turn it over to Director Sowers and the commissioners for any comments.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to reiterate some things that Steve went over, and that is, during COVID-19 and the hurricane season, we need to continue to press the message that social distancing really isn't going to be too possible in shelters. So we encourage the public now to start making their plans now. Do not wait for a hurricane or a storm to approach. And that is to get with your friends and family outside of an evacuation zone and make those plans that you can go to a friend or family member's house outside of evacuation zone instead of a shelter. As you know, our COVID-19 positive testing rate is going up, and that will continue through the summer, I do believe. So a shelter is really a place of last resort, and we really need to save those for those in manufactured homes and trailer homes and those that just have no other place to go. So if you have a place to go through friends and family, now's the time to make those plans. We don't want to risk anyone going to a shelter unnecessarily. We don't evacuate for wind, we evacuate for flooding outside of trailers, mobile homes, and manufactured homes. So, you run away from flooding and you hide from wind. So many times you have friends and family outside of evacuation zone that is going to be much more comfortable for you versus going to a shelter, especially during this year with COVID-19. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Whitmore.
You're still muted. You're still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I like that commercial. Just a few things I wanted to bring up. I actually have already gotten, you can go to the store and get those large trash cans, the plastic with the lid on it. I've already packed up and rechecked this year my can to make sure I got all the supplies. And during the tax-free week, I went and got a generator, and that actually got unpacked today. So I'm very serious about this because I've lived through this where we've lost 5 or 6 days of electric. So hopefully, if you all have any, if the public has any questions or stuff, we're always available to help you. Also, to inform families first is a lifesaver. It's toinformfamiliesfirst.org. And as you were told, this is a great way to get with our law enforcement. So if something happens to you, a next of kin can be notified, and I've been very involved with that for years. So I'm glad we're bringing this up today. The guides are located, I think, in our libraries and our public buildings, and again at emergency operations. These are a wealth of information. In a lot of the medical world, we actually put those in packets for patients. So, call us and we can get you the packets if you need them to pass out. Also, I just wanted to thank everybody. Now what we're going to do is we're going to, for those of you that have dialed in, because this is a hurricane prep town hall, I'd like that you ask questions relating to preparing your home and your family and your property and pets. If there are questions we cannot answer at this meeting, we will take note of your question and we'll contact you. So we're going to open this up to public, and somebody, Seth is here to open the lines if anybody would like to ask a question. Also, I would like Steve to mention the special needs. Many of you know I'm an RN. The special needs, when they do go, they can bring one family member with them, correct? Okay,
Yes,
so they can bring one.
One caregiver.
And
Correct.
what about their pet if they are special
Bring
needs?
pets to special needs also.
Okay, that's real important for us animal lovers and also the caregivers of somebody that may need a facility. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Seth, and then Seth, I guess we'll open it up for any questions.
I'll go ahead. So
Okay.
I don't really have any direct phone callers tonight. Doesn't look that way. So if you have a question, down at the very bottom of your screen, almost dead center bottom, you see raise hand. If you hit that button, we will recognize that you have a question and then open the line. So if you have a question, hit the little raised hand at the very bottom of your screen and hit that. Somebody's got to have a question. Come on. Okay. If you happen to be on the line, *9, and then we will open up your line. *9 if you're on the phone, or raise hand if you're on the computer. All right, Commissioner Director, I don't see any questions, so I'll turn it over to the Director, then have it end with the Commissioner.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody for participating. Hopefully, we told you some things you didn't know and some things that you already knew about this year and COVID-19. I wish everybody they continue to be safe and happy, and please start preparing now for your hurricane preparations. Commissioner?
Again, I want to thank everybody that did attend. Sometimes no questions means that we did such a good job, you don't need to ask anything. But again, if you have any questions, you know to contact us. We have been going through a really rough time, as we all know, with COVID, the lockdown, being in our homes. Now's the time, if you can, to go through your cupboards, look and see what you have, put all your candles in an area, make sure your batteries are new, have backup batteries. There's many other things you can do. Put large gallon Ziploc bags, fill them with water, put them in your freezers if you see a storm coming, and then that's a way to refrigerate for a while. So we really appreciate this. Manatee County takes this seriously. We've done about 6 or 7 of these town halls, and also, as you know, we're doing a lot of public education. Feel free to call me anytime. I'm always available. I answer my own emails. I will return every phone call I get. And my director here and our wonderful EOC, Steve, is on the ball. And it's too bad we couldn't see you all in person, but hopefully next year it'll be better. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.